Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Ahrtimmer Answers Questions, the show that is exactly what it says it is. If you want to ask me a question, send your question to the email linked on the screen, that is ahrtimmer@mail.com. I do accept all questions, and while those about League of Legends are preferred, in the event that you would like to ask me some other sort of question, I will answer it. It might not be the answer you want, but you will receive an answer. Our first question today comes from lung cancer, which is an exceedingly unusual place to find questions. Usually you find internal pain and death, which is a little depressing. So let's move on to the question. Question: what's your ideas on unusual supports? Udyr Galio. And junglers such as Karma and Thresh. When can I play them and when shouldn't I? Blind picked and ranked. Okay, for blind picked, do whatever you want. I don't care if you're solo queuing blind pick or playing with a team. Blind pick is a game where you're supposed to have fun. In the words of Total Biscuit, if you're compromising the fun of the other people in your team, you're probably doing a bad thing, but there are more games. They'll have another blind pick game. They won't quit LOL because you decided to support Udyr. And if you do it well then they might just think that you're hilarious. Or they might try it themselves, which it's always nice to see people trying new things. So when blind picked, just do anything you want. Try and justify it, but do what you want. In ranked, it depends on whether or not you have a team. If you are solo or duo queue in ranked, you need to be able to convince your team that it's a good idea before you get to champion select. This is almost impossible. And you should never, ever handicap your team's chances of winning a ranked game by picking a champion that maybe isn't as good for the role as other champions, or more specifically, having your team hate you. Because they will stop trying to help you, and you will stop wanting to help them. Once that's gone, all the teamwork eventually crumbles, raging starts, and you spend more time typing in chat and abusing people than you do actually playing the game. If you can win with it, I'm not going to stop you, but you kind of want to be able to tell your team that this will work, not that it could work. If you have a full ranked team, again, comes like blind pick, you can do whatever you want. You want to be playing to win, for obvious reasons, because it's ranked, and the idea of ranked is to climb that ladder and be the most boss that you can be. But if you've got a plan, and you share that plan with your team, and your team is okay with it, go ahead. You might just throw a curveball at the enemy team, completely ruining their champion select, because they go, okay, so that person's going to be top lane, so I want to counter them with this person, and then you go bottom lane and screw them up. You can totally metagame people like that, but you've got to be really careful. Never, ever throw a ranked game. Don't do it. Today's second question comes in from Jacob Quivik. Hi Art, what are your thoughts on a few underplayed champions like Poppy, Zillion, Scion, and Fiddlesticks? I noticed that these champions do not feel any role in the current meta supplies, or which the current meta supplies. How could I, as a big Poppy and Fiddle player, be able to play my favorites? Peace Art, you're the man. This links in very well with the previous question. Do it in blind pick. If you want to play it in ranked, these champions are not invalid. Zillion's a bit weird because, well, he's a bit weird. He can bomb for massive damage if you build full AP, but that's like, you kind of want to support as him, so maybe just stack your speed boost and see what happens. He can be very, very effective in the late game, keeping your AD carry alive beyond the point which the enemy think they're dead. Quite useful. And you can mean that your team doesn't need to buy a Guardian Angel because you provide one. Other than that, these champions are all actually really good. Like, Poppy is the melee Vayne. Vayne was essentially modeled after Poppy, and I reckon Poppy's better because she's, well, have you seen her tower dives? She can tower dive a full team and just nothing. You got nothing on Poppy. She is the best, well, not the best champion, but she's fantastic. Fiddlesticks is one of my personal favorites, and I love him to bits. Play him mid, play him jungle, instantly kill everything. Granted, he's not as good as he was in the days when you could get blue buff and then double kill bottom lane. But, you know, he's still great. There's no reason you can't play any of these champions, you just need to be good enough and know what you're up against. If you go top lane as Sion against Garen, you need to know that you need to stun him. Every time he wants to try and spin to win you, or silence you more importantly, you gotta stun him. Just... oh, like, the strange thing is, the champions that you've picked there are champions that I think are perfectly valid. The meta is not something I keep up with. Not actively, anyway. And all of these champions are just champions that have... I don't even want to say high risk, high reward, because Zillion is not exactly high reward, and Sion is not exactly high risk. But they're champions that play differently to other champions that might fill the role. Like, you want... usually you want a burst champion in mid, someone who can nuke down enemy champions. Annie, Vega, Ziggs, etc. Sometimes you grab melee champions, but Fiddlesticks can fill that role. Have you seen what Fiddlesticks does to a unprepared enemy mid? It's like, hey, what are you planning on doing to me? I'm Fiddlesticks, I've got a mana potion, and I will never ever die unless you gank me while I'm draining you. In which case you'll die, and then I'll run back to my tower, and then I'll fear your jungle, and then I'll drain him. And he will be pissed, and I will not die. Played well, all of these champions can win, and there's no reason that you should consider the meta before you consider the fact that you're going to win. Our last question is from Water Downey. As one word, all capitals. You can probably see it on the screen. I have a question. What do you think about Volibear's passive? Should it be nerfed? Also, do you think that crowd control reduction should be removed from masteries? Interesting questions. Volibear's passive. I hate it. I hate every bit about it because it denies me all the kills. Volibear's mean, but he's not overpowered. Because you can nuke him down, or you can ignite him, which ruins his passive. And it doesn't have a massive effect until the very late game when you've got a lot of health, in which case people don't even want to be fighting you, because in the team fights, they want to kill everyone that they, well, are going to get killed by, and Volibear doesn't have that huge amount of damage. He's got a bit, but not... He's no AD carry, or he's no late game Sion. No, I don't think it needs nerfing, maybe a slight. Like, the most I'd take from it is 5%, that's the absolute most. Don't feel it's too annoying, it's just really irritating, particularly in the early game when you think that if you've got someone down to one block of health, that they're going to be. He's just gonna go, huh, I'm gonna heal that back up in a sec. Irritating, but, like, there are champions with heals that can heal their allies as well, like, say, Taric. He's not overpowered. Do I think that crowd control reduction should be removed from masteries? No, because I like that if you want to be a tank, the masteries currently have a set of, let's get you a little bit of extra health, a little bit less of extra armor and magic resist. Like, there's not actually that much armor and magic resist in the defensive masteries. What defensive masteries mostly do are make you ignore shit. You can ignore slows up to about 15%, and you can ignore crowd control. And with certain champions, see Garen with a tenacity item and his crowd control reduction ability, And that, like, you can get crowd control down to a point where it's stupidly low. I imagine the best person's Aurelia, and she already does that on her own. Like, giving her crowd control reduction in Masteries is just asking to be immune. Certain champions benefit from this more than most, and I feel that's where the problem lies. Garen's a pain in the ass without crowd controls having 90% reduction or about that. Aurelia is the same. These are champions that probably shouldn't be able to benefit from it. However, champions that don't have crowd control reduction actually make it... It's really freaking useful. I would change it slightly so that it does stack with tenacity items, because there's nothing wrong with it stacking with tenacity items. That means that there is a finite amount. But I wouldn't have it go beyond a certain point. I would cap tenacity at about 50%. That's a good number, because then you know, okay, my stun is a 2-second stun, it's going to stun them for 1 second. Or less. Or more, rather. You shouldn't be able to get the approximately 90% crowd control reduction. I've had fights with an Aurelia recently where I popped a crowd control and she was instantly freed of it. It never actually showed up on her and she auto-attacked and killed me. That was just fricking annoying. So yeah, I would cap tenacity or make it not stack with champion skill tenacity. That's how I'd play the game. But I don't think it should be removed because I like the way that Masteries work now in that they turn you into a honey badger. Those were this week's questions. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you next week. Send in your questions in the comment section of this video, or to ahrtimmer@mail.com. Have a good time, and I will see you next time.